and we're going to welcome in our co-host and special guests and celebrity guests here with our show tonight, Billy Martin Jr. Billy.
Well, glad to be here, guys. Wish we were watching the Yankees tonight.
Yeah.
Well, amen to that. Danny, welcome. And before we turn it over to our panel, just looking forward to some good Yankee conversation.
Yeah, I'm like Billy. I wish the Yankees were still playing. So it was, missed that. So
Agree. You know what? And you said it perfectly. And on our last episode that we did, it was the pregame before game 4 of the ALDS against Toronto. It was do or die. And they didn't do. So we are here. So what we're going to do is, we know that tomorrow, okay, the Yankees have a press conference. They put it out and they said that tomorrow at 12 noon, Aaron Boone, followed by Brian Cashman. Tune in on Yes and the Gotham Sports app. So I guess with that being said, we're going to turn it over to the panel and we're going to ask, what changes would you make in the front office, or what changes would you like to see made, and then also on the field. We're going to go down to Arkansas. Welcome, TJ. Thanks for joining us. TJ, your thoughts?
Thanks for having me, Mike. Well, obviously, the news tomorrow is that they're both going to be back. Those would have been two things that I would have liked to have seen change, but that's not going to happen. I like Volpe. He's a good player, but I think he needs a fresh start. We need a new shortstop. Unload him and Jazz and Wells. I think we need a right-handed hitting catcher. I think that would help. With Rice behind the dish and also being able to play first base. I think it's imperative that we sign Bellinger. I know we didn't have a great postseason, but without that kid's contributions during the course of the year, offensively and defensively, I don't think we would have gotten as far as we did. This is the one. Okay, and also I'd like to get that Ketel Marte, whether he can play second or short. Of course, my big one would be move heaven and earth to get Corey Seager to play short. I don't know if that'll happen.
Wow. Good stuff. I'm writing. I wrote it all down. And ladies and gentlemen, let's just also throw in that TJ is related to Corey Seager. It's his dad's first cousin is right. But the thing is, that's really, honestly speaking, knowing TJ, that's not really why he's saying it as a Yankee fan, knowing that Corey would be perfect for Yankee Stadium and his makeup, the fact that he's won two World Series MVPs. He's saying it for that reason. Eric, your comments.
Good to be back on the program, guys. And honestly, at this point, I'll take anything. TJ's take, albeit a very hot one. Hey, sure, why not, right? If you want to, take that big of a dive and get rid of Volpe, get rid of Wells, get rid of Jazz, sure, why not? I'll give it a shot. Where I'm coming from is a little bit different. I wouldn't necessarily get rid of any of those three guys, to be honest. And I say that, considering the fact that just about a month ago we were on the program talking so terribly about Volpe and how much we wanted him out of there. I wouldn't get rid of him. I would say you have to take into consideration the fact that this guy was playing through a torn labrum, non-throwing shoulder, but at the end of the day, that's your leading shoulder when you're on the plate, right? When you're batting up, that non-pit throwing shoulder plays a huge part when you're at the plate. So that makes a lot of sense considering how much of a problem he had throughout the season. So I would say give him a shot, see how he is when he's healthy, but I wouldn't run into the season very deep with him. If the guy's, repeating the performance of last year on a healthy shoulder going into May, June, at that point, again, I go back to I want to see Lombard. Why not? I'll take TJ's take. I'll take Lombard for a shot. I'll take whatever anybody wants to give me, right? But that's what I think at this point in terms of Volpe specifically. I would give him another shot.
Eric, great comments. Before we turn it over to Rose, I just want to ask you just very clearly, because TJ was very clear, and he's been clear all season long regarding Aaron Boone. He did not want him back. And he even mentioned Cashman also in his comments there. Weigh in on that with the press conference coming tomorrow. We know that they're running both back. Your thoughts are either worthy of coming back, and comment on that, please.
I personally believe that the answer is yes, more so for Cashman than it is for Boone. Simply because I feel like I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? The Yankees have been knocking on the door. We were in the World Series last year, and we've been really battling within the last 4 years. So I think that the effort is being made, not so much to the extent that the fans want to see it done, but it's clearly being made in some sort of a capacity. I think with Booney, though, again, we go back to the whole analytical thing. And Mike, can I just make a quick side note on this whole analytical thing? It blows my mind, Billy. This one's for you too. It blows my mind that this guy was playing through a torn labrum, and yet the analytical team was like at the forefront basically for the Yankees and has been for the longest. So how can you sit there and tell me that analytically it makes sense to put a guy out there who's got a torn labrum? That's just my rhetorical question. I don't understand the logic behind that. You would think if we're going with analytics, driving in the driver's seat, that a guy who's hurt needs to come off the field. I just don't see any positive analytical number or scenario coming out of that. So again, that's a conundrum for me. But I think Booney needs to. I think we've understood that Booney is being driven by the analytical department. Some people are saying that he enjoys it, that he's actually leaning into it. I beg to differ. Who knows? But I think that he needs to put a little bit more of his mojo, so to speak, in it. If he wants to see any more success, because honestly, the way it's been going is obviously not enough.
Oh, great stuff. Billy and Danny, hopefully you're taking notes. Because we're going to ask you for some comments later on. But before we do, we're going to go down. We had TJ in Arkansas, we had Eric in Florida, and now we have Rose in the Garden State. Rose, welcome.
Hi.
Hi,
It's great to be on the show. Honestly, I don't think much is going to change at all. I think that Hal has a business model, and his business model is the stadium, not the team, the stadium. He wants to sell seats for the season and sell food for the season, and he makes enough money for that. The way to do that is home runs, Aaron Judge, and win enough to keep the stadium packed. And I don't think that's going to change, because going to Yankee Stadium is a New York City event, just like going to the Garden is. That being said, so I don't think anything much is going to change. And I think maybe someday they'll win in spite of analytics, but I don't know when that will be. I would definitely go after Bellinger. That's my number one. I would try to keep him no matter what. As far as Volpe, not everybody's a home run hitter, but I know the business model is to hit home runs and sell more food. But if they would just take these players, especially the infielders or smaller guys, and teach them to hit the other way, to be table setters, to move players over. I mean, baseball was played that way for 100 years. I don't care what the analytics say. That Volpe could be that kind of player. And Jazz maybe too. I don't know, but Jazz thinks he's Judge sometimes. So that's kind of, as far as any other, it's time to see. I would definitely not keep Grisham. I think he had a career year and he kind of faded at the end. And, you get these players, sign these players from the Dominican, a lot of money. You got to see what the monster can do. Not the monster, I'm sorry, the Martian. You got to see what the Martian can do. So either see what he can do, play him every day, or trade him. That's kind of what I think.
Great stuff.
Great.
Okay, we'll start with Billy. Okay, Billy, you heard a lot. You heard from TJ, Eric, and you also heard from Rose. Your thoughts? So, what jumped out at you?
Well, I want to agree with. I need a manager making the decision, making the call I'd like to see the Yankees do it the way the Red Sox do in the postseason. But the Red Sox do it all year. Cora gets to make the call. He gets all the notes during the game, but it's his call. And I know the way the analytics guys talk, and I've talked to Brian about it. I've talked to lots of people about it. And they feel like the law of averages is in their favor. And I think that works during the regular season. I don't love it, but I'm okay with it during the regular season. In the postseason, it's a different game. You're not facing number 4s and 5s very often. And it's the best pitching you face all year. So that's when a manager has to really step up and get creative and do all the little things. You know, I want to see more two-strike approaches. I think the Yankees definitely need to sign Bellinger back. I'm with all you guys on that. I looked at some free agents that are out there, and I agree with Rose on Grisham completely. I think he was awesome. I'd keep him around as a 4th outfielder, but you know, I'd love to see the Yankees go after a Kyle Tucker, or you know, let's see what happens with Jarren Duran in Boston. There's a chance he could be available. I'd love to see him go after Alex Bregman this time. We've told him on the show several times we think he'd be a great fit because he can also play second base, Mike. So, you know, that might be a great move. Bo Bichette is a potential shortstop who's out there. I'm fine with sticking with Volpe. I'd love to see him enact a two-strike approach. I'd love to see him play a little bit more small ball and take advantage of his athleticism. I think he kind of deserves another year to play healthy. But, man, there are so many directions they can go. We could talk about bullpens, starters, all that stuff, but I'm taking way too much time. So let's hear what the next guy's got to say.
Well, the next guy is none other than Danny Mantle. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to put him on the spot. You heard a lot, Danny. So just to recap a little bit, you know, TJ's, you know, he wants to move on from Volpe and Jazz and Wells. He likes Rice, but he wants to put him behind the plate. And he talked about Marte, who is a very interesting talent. We know that. Play second base. He could be up the middle player. And he also mentioned something that, you know, I'm going to talk about later on. Corey Seager, you know, move heaven and earth was his term to trade for him. He was down on Boone, doesn't think he deserves to be back, nor Cashman. Eric was a little bit, you know, less kind of blow it up. And he understands that there was a torn labrum, but he has absolutely no tolerance for the analytics department when it comes to this misdiagnosing of players. Most recently, a torn labrum after you hear a pop in the month of May. And he played the rest of the season. And now he just had season-ending surgery. Okay, he had surgery after the season. Okay, and then Rose said very correctly, Hal is all about a business model. He's all about making money, the turnstile, food concessions, and basically that's it in terms of nothing wrong with that, but it's not that passion that the dad had for winning at all costs. She wants to bring Bellinger back. Volpe, you know, she's willing to give another chance to. No to Grisham, you know, and that basically sums things up a little bit. So let's just get some general thoughts from you, Danny, if you can.
Well, the first thing is, you know, I don't get a chance to see as many Yankee games as you guys do. This was great for me, you know, watching the Boston series and all that. I love seeing that. But what I saw was, you know, and I understand they're doing a lot of reconstruction with the bullpen, you know, and I mean, you have to hand it to, how do you say, is it
Schlittler, be careful. We don't want to get.
Yeah,
we don't want to have to hit the dump
button.
You wouldn't be the first one, Ben.
No, but that guy came out and I mean, hell, he looked like he'd been there for years. I mean, he threw a hell of a game, man. But I feel like just from what I've seen, the bullpen, what we're hearing, it sounds like they're doing a full fledged thing on the with the pitching. Is what I read today anyway. At least that's what it sounds like. So I think the bullpen could use some new people, and but that's kind of what I focused on was the pitching really during these, the what I was lucky enough to see. So it was great.
Well, you bring up a great point because I'm going to give you my take in a minute or so. But Danny, you bring up a great point because you see in these series, you see what the Los Angeles Dodgers have done over the first two games. I mean, dominant. Absolutely dominant pitching. We could talk about that in a minute, and we did not get that from the New York Yankees. Let's just see, since we do have Billy Martin Jr. with us, let's just ask him to TJ's point, and he's been on this all year. He feels it's unacceptable to have Aaron Boone at this point in the dugout. There's no point of it when it's he's not coaching anybody up, etc., etc. Billy, since 1903. Not a single manager of the Yankees was granted a fifth season without winning a World Series. Okay, 2026 will be Boone's ninth. Okay, with that, well, we don't know what he's going to do in that ninth year. Does he deserve a ninth year, in your opinion?
It's such a hard question to answer, not knowing all the details. If he's not making any calls, then it's not his fault. Then he's just there to show love to the guys and talk to them and help them through things. And I get the feeling he does a decent job at that. But I want a manager making calls, and I think that's why we lost Girardi. I think that's why he's gone. And I think he was a good X and O manager. And so not knowing makes that so hard to say. But look, a lot of people feel like just getting to the playoffs, you've done your job. The playoffs are a different animal. What's going to happen is going to happen, right? All we can do is build a team and get them there. And there is some truth to that too, to a point. But Yankee fans aren't ever going to be satisfied with just getting to the playoffs. That's not the city that never sleeps. So I would like to say, okay, Aaron, take charge. Let's see what he does this time. Then I can really easily answer that question.
Billy, what you just said,
but
they were
I want a manager taking charge.
I got you. So it's interesting what you said, and we lost Rose. My goodness. So hopefully we get her back. I don't see her. Okay, but I'm sure she'll circle back. But what you said was exactly what Derek Jeter said post game. He said, I just don't think that Boone is making the decisions. That's what he said. And A-Rod chimed in and said, you know what? It's the construction of the roster. They have 5 DHs and they have 3 catchers and they're all left-handed batters, et cetera, as far as that goes. And so that is the conundrum. We've been there this year, and we've all agreed to that. I just want to just mention one thing and kind of amplify something that Eric said when it came to being unacceptable from the analytics department in terms of how they assess injuries, how they assess playing time, resting players that are 100% healthy just because of the fact that they played X amount of games in a row. And he talks about Volpe, and very accurately. Well, here's a couple of other ones. And I actually believe that this is not a coincidence. This just happens way too often. I'm going to give you two. Mark Leiter Jr. pitched with a broken kneecap. How is that possible? And here's one that really bothers me. And it's something that I've written about on my website, probably going back close to 10 years. Because they have an obsession with the home run, with the long ball, they spend too much time in the weight room. Yeah, they look great. Giancarlo looks great. I mean, it's et cetera. But what good is it if they're not on the field? And this one really bothered me. Fernando Cruz, who was so important to us in the bullpen with that unhittable splitter, which he was, an eighth inning setup guy. And then what does he do? He pulls a core muscle, an oblique, with a medicine ball in the gym. And he's out for months, a severe pull. This speaks volumes, and it's not mentioned or covered. What are these guys doing in the gym? They're lifting too hard. How is it possible to pull an oblique? We've all used a medicine ball in the gym. We're like loosening up a little bit before we do whatever else we're going to do, whether it's lifting weights or going out and shooting hoops or whatever. How is it possible to injure yourself with a severe oblique with a medicine ball? I mean, this tells me that they're strength and conditioning are not on the same page with the analytics department. I mean, Eric, does that amplify a little bit, or does that just frustrate you further that your head wants to explode?
Yeah, I'm even more upset now at this point because a broken kneecap. I mean, what's the analytical positive out of that? Excuse me, of having a guy like that on the field. And I would love to really get the answer, right? Like, explain to me how having an injured guy out there for months on end is analytically positive. I'd love to see the numbers on that, because realistically, analytics aside, the days of before analytics, if the guy's injured, right, if it's an obviously major, intense, like serious injury, he's off the field. That's like Jeter breaking his ankle that one year, and then he's fine for next game or whatever. No, he's off the field. He's injured. He needs to recover. That this opportunity then arises for other people to possibly make a difference. It's the domino effect, I think, in the positive. But having a guy injured on the field for months on end, I don't see any positive out of that. To Rose's point, also, and to your point about the guys getting too focused on bulking up. If it's part of the business plan, right? If the home runs are filling the seats, then what do you think is going to go down the pipeline all the way to that strength and conditioning team? Get them bigger, get them stronger, make them hit harder. I know Fernando's not the same case because he's a pitcher, but still, get the pitcher strong, make him throw harder, etc. Who knows what's going on in those meetings? But the reality of it is that you're absolutely right. Nothing's lining up at this point. Nothing's lining up. Too much focus on the home run. No focus essentially on the situational hitting, in my opinion. And I think that's what's going to take us over the hill if we want to get to the World Series again. But who am I,
Well, great point. Yeah, Rose.
Very good.
There you go, Rose. So again, okay. So Eric tied it into your comments with the bottom line with Hal. These players are assets, right? As Eric just said, what benefit do you get when you have a pitcher with a broken kneecap? What benefit do you have when you have guys working out too hard and straining themselves with a medicine ball and out for months? Volpe, we're talking about with the pop in May. And oh, by the way, I mean, we all remember Anthony Rizzo playing with a concussion for 3 months.
Yeah.
Rose?
You know what? These are not baseball decisions. The decisions being made by the Yankee organization is either being made for economics or by analytical people that don't really know don't know baseball. The decisions being made are not baseball decisions because there's not they're not. There's no baseball people there. I mean, there is, but they don't seem to have a say. And I agree with Boone. I mean, I agree about Boone. I don't think Boone makes one decision. I really don't. And he is there to be a friend to the players, and to talk to the media. And he's doing his job. I don't know what happened to Cashman. Why analytics make him giddy. I don't know. And I think that players being hurt goes back to, again, not making baseball decisions. Okay, the computer says that guy has to be on the field with that pitcher, so that's what we're doing.
Yep. All right. Well, listen.
Could I make a point, Mike?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. In regard to Aaron, I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. My only point is, and I know Bill would emphasize the whole analytics, not knowing where it's coming from. My point is, and Bill's dad was a manager and a tremendous manager. If you weren't doing things, he would let you know. Same with Girardi. Same with Mr. Joe Torre. If you weren't doing the things, I mean, that's the thing that bothered me. The fundamentals, the base running. My goodness, how many idiotic base running blunders did we have? Just on defense, making mistakes here and there. Those are the things. And I'm just thinking, you're the leader of the team. You should be making some points. That's why I'm about fed up with it. Plus the fact, like you said, he's gone 8 years without a World Series championship. No manager ever has done that for the New York Yankees. I just can't fathom that. That's my biggest beef right there.
Very fair points. And before we get Billy's comments on that, because Billy will definitely weigh in on that, I just want to go over to Danny for a minute, because Danny, you heard this and you saw Eric is a passionate Yankee fan, and you saw his face. You see the look on his face, and you were saying, why are we running injured players out there? We're not doing them any favors. We're not doing the team any favors. The analytics department, if they're making that decision, it makes us harken back, because when we think of Mickey Mantle, it's not only the 550-foot home runs. It's not only the fact that he was a switch hitter. It's not only the blazing speed that he could get down to first base in 3.1 seconds. It was not only the fact that he won a batting title because he could bunt. My goodness, he beat out Ted Williams because he was able to bunt a baseball. It's not only all of that. When we think of Mickey Mantle, maybe the number one thing that we think about with Mickey Mantle is playing hurt, being great, playing through injuries and disabilities that started from his rookie season. So it's a tough one when you think about it. But Danny, here's the difference. Your dad was able to perform on a Hall of Fame level with those injuries. When we're looking at what we're looking at in modern day, Anthony Volpe's performance went straight down. Okay. Mark Leiter Jr. went straight down. Okay. Fernando Cruz took himself off the field. And so Danny, we want you to comment on two things. One, the difference between being able to play injured like your dad did. Okay. Most of these players today can't. And you shouldn't allow a guy like Rizzo out there with post-concussion syndrome, and his performance was straight down. All you need are two eyes to be watching the game to know that something's wrong. They're hurt and they're not performing. And oh, by the way, and then we guess we could all comment on this, how precious is it to win every regular season game possible? The Yankees finished in a dead heat with the Toronto Blue Jays. Okay. They lost because of a tiebreaker. All of these players that we're talking about with kneecaps and with pops and with, torn labrums and all of this, one game. We blew so many games because injured players couldn't perform. And then you look at the Yankees, we had to go into Toronto, not with your best pitcher, not with your game one pitcher. We were back on our heels. Look at the Milwaukee Brewers, great season, but they had a struggle to get there, to beat the Cubs. Okay. So the question, Danny, to you is, and I guess maybe we'll keep it at your dad played his entire career from 1951 when he stepped in the drain pipe during the World Series. The whole rest of his career, he played hurt. What do you think when you see these decisions made on the current players?
Well, I love what Rose said because, and me and Billy have talked about this. I'm like, players aren't computers. you know, these guys get out and they play the game, like they grew up playing. What happened to that? None of us know, right? And even Dad used to say that Casey would get pissed at him because, he, instead of trying to bring people around, Dad's out there trying to hit a home run. But, my dad was an excellent drag bunter, and you don't see those types of things anymore. And the game is so strange to me now. I mean, I'm only speaking for me, but that's how I feel. When Dad, it was the 57 series, and I can't remember the player that fell on his shoulder, and it screwed up his right shoulder. That's what caused him to not be able to hit right-handed much after that. But he had to have shoulder surgery, and so that's why you see him after 57 hitting left-handed more often. And so, but all of his, he wished that it never happened, of course, obviously, but that's where his power was his right-handed batting. And so if that had never happened, we may be, Dad may have hit 600 home runs and stuff like that. But, it's just, it's real frustrating because, it's just players are not computers, man. You can't just say, oh, well, this thing says to do this. I don't get it. And, I love what Eric just says. And, I just love hearing these, different things. And it's just great. And TJ is always great. So, I mean, it's just, I think all of us are kind of dumbfounded about it. So,
Mike, can I say something?
Yeah.
Um, uh, to Billy or about Billy's dad. Talk about analytics. Billy's dad had all the knowledge of baseball in his head. 100 years of knowledge of baseball was in his head. And he got that by watching and seeing. And he knew what he had to do with the players that he had on the field on a team or on the field at a certain day. That 100 years of baseball knowledge is just so much better than I think Ted Williams had that about hitting. It's just then a computer is saying, well, okay, here's a percentage of this and that, and this is what we're going to do. Those guys knew how baseball should be played, and it still should be played that way.
Yeah, I don't get why it's not.
Eric, go.
I was gonna say I'd love to just add to that and also piggyback off of what Danny mentioned before. A few episodes ago, Billy mentioned something along those lines, Rose, where he said Dad would take the analytical information. He would accept it. He would willingly accept that information. But at 7:05 p.m., excuse me, at 7:05 p.m., at that it's Billy's call, right? It's what he wants, right? Given that information combined with the 100 years of knowledge that he has in his head. And I think that's the best approach given, the fact that I don't think analytics is going anywhere these days. I don't think it's going to be fair to push away that natural baseball mentality and put in its place this whole analytical mentality. I think there's going to be a fight between the two, and that ultimately they're going to have to learn how to live a symbiotic relationship with each other because that's the only way I see teams really being successful and baseball continuing on being the game that it's always been over these last, 200-300 years or whatever. So that's number one. To piggyback off of what Danny was mentioning, I think a huge thing about it these days with a lot of these players is it's a mentality thing. I mean, think about it. We're talking about Mickey Mantle. We didn't have strength and conditioning departments. We didn't have, recovery this, recovery that, cupping and stuff, all these things that they get they didn't have any of that stuff. So when you get hurt, you got to play hurt, right? You got to bust through it, you got to fight through it. I think these days being a mental thing and being that all these luxuries are laid in front of these guys, they might even lean into it, right? They might even say, "Oh, I'm hurt. I gotta go conditional." Who knows where the mentality is, given the fact that everybody's getting babied these days. So I think also a big part of it, I think, is a mental thing where guys kind of like lean into that whole novelty and the idea of recuperating or recovering. I'm not saying guys are going out there to get hurt on purpose, but at the same time, I just don't feel they have that mentality of, what, I gotta grit through this and get through it regardless. They tend to lean into that, recovery mode.
Great point, Eric. And before we get Billy's thoughts on that, I just like to echo Rose's comments and say that since I'm old enough to remember Billy Martin, and it was just at the right age of my life. I was like 18, 19 years old. I just got my driver's license, and you got your whole life ahead of you. Everything is just so exciting, and everything like that. If you would have asked me in 1977 who my favorite Yankees were, I would have said Thurman and Billy. And I mean, just think about that. I'm talking about the heart and soul of the team. One was a catcher and one was a manager. TJ, before we give it to Billy, and then you hand it over to Billy, but just think about that comment, TJ, right? I mean, a catcher and a manager. Think about that in today's game, and then you throw it over to Billy, if you will.
Well, I'm partial, and who knows with Therm? Good grief, man! If he, unfortunately, if he didn't die, if he'd have been running the show one of these days, you just never know. Because I know he had aspirations to be a manager one day, whether it was in Cleveland or for the Yankees, and the tugboat would have been one. I think he'd have been fantastic with his mentality and his knowledge, his tenacity, the whole works, and he probably resonated a lot of that from Billy. I mean, as far as how to play the game and to do the right thing.
No, you're right. There was a story Dad had told me one time that him and Thurman had gotten pretty close because Billy would have Dad down to spring training and as the batting coach supposedly. So yeah, but anyway, so he was down there and he got close with Thurman, but Thurman had he had a lot of power, man. And him and Dad just hit it off great. And, I think my dad just really thought a hell of a lot of him. And, I just wanted to tell TJ that because I know how you feel with the catchers and stuff. But that guy was something else, man. It's like I said last time, he didn't get to finish, what he started.
Right.
Bill?
Well, okay, to, I don't know, compliment Rose's thing about my father. My father was called up late in 1950. He wasn't called up for his stick or his glove or his wheels. He was called up for this because Casey had him on his 1948 team with the Oakland Oaks. And Dad was the youngest player on that team. But Casey knew that he was another coach in the clubhouse. Mickey, Danny's father, told me all these stories about how Dad was like that. They'd be watching the game, and my father would notice where the second baseman was playing and run over to Casey and say, "Casey, we can steal second right now. They won't even cover. Look where the second baseman's playing." And Casey would do it. He had that kind of trust in my father. And, you think about it, today's game, they call somebody up, they put them in that moment. They put him in that day. They don't want him sitting around getting nervous. Dad had to wait 2 whole weeks until he got in. And kind of cool as a Yankee, he got in, didn't get into like the 8th inning of a game in Boston. The Yankees were up significantly, about 7 runs. Casey let Dad lead off the 8th inning. He got a double in his first at-bat. He got up again in the same inning and got another hit. And that DiMaggio fella said, "Way to break in, kid." And I've talked to the Hall of Fame, and they said nobody in history has debuted with 2 hits in their first 2 at-bats in the same inning like that. And as a Yankee, doing it in Boston just kind of makes it perfect, right?
Oh,
But going back to what TJ said about the injuries and stuff, and these guys, and even the analytics guys, like Eric was saying, how are they letting them do this? That's part of a baseball player's mojo, right? When you play 162 games, there's always something barking. TJ was a catcher. He knows what I'm talking about. You've got something going on somewhere in your body almost always. And everybody wants to be tough. Everybody wants to be the rodeo cowboy and say, oh, I got this. I can play. That's the baseball guys. That's the trainer. That's the manager and the trainer that have to make that call and say, no, he's hurting us right now. He's not helping us. Because I would watch Gene Monahan and my father go over the whole roster before every game and talk about those things. And it was a learning experience for me every time. But that's what some guys have to do. My father said they would tape Mickey up like a damn mummy with ace bandage before each game. He said he looked like a mummy. They had so much stuff on him, and he was just special. He could suck it up and go out there and hit 2 home runs and lay down a drag bunt and not just hit a home run, but hit it
pretty far,
2 blocks down the road.
Great. And
you know how much Mickey Mantle would give for one of those impact guns that massages you, right?
oh man.
These guys. When I was with the Reds, these guys would be walking around the clubhouse all day with them, just massaging themselves in the thigh. You know how much your dad would kill for that, Danny? It would be like heaven if he had that. Come on.
I know it. I just wanted to say something that we're talking about the players working out and all that and being all pumped up now, and they didn't have that type of thing back in those days with Dad and Billy. But I don't know if anyone, I've seen pictures of Billy Martin with he was pumped, man. I asked Billy too. I said, man, did your dad, was he using weights or what back then? Because he was built great, he was one of the most built guys I'd ever seen for that, for his size. And, but I just had to throw that in there because he had some body on him. Just, I don't know how he did it. Billy, how he did it. I don't know, but it was just, it's amazing to me. And, we've always talked about Billy's home runs and stuff in World Series plays that people don't even know about, and it's a shame, people need to know that stuff about Billy. And,
well, think about that, Dave. How much would that drive analytics guys crazy in today's game? Yeah. Casey Stengel would take my father, the 8 or 9 hole hitter. He would bat in the 8 hole unless Whitey was pitching. He'd go the 9 hole because Whitey was a 290 hitter, right? Casey would take my father from that spot and put him right behind Mickey Mantle in the World Series. Analytics guys would stick guns in their mouth on that deal. You can't put the 8 hole hitter behind Mickey Mantle.
I said it's
our fathers hit back-to-back home runs 3 times in World Series play. Look it up. It's only happened twice by 2 other groups. And who would ever pick the guy that had 14 in his best year ever to bat behind Mickey Mantle?
I said it a few episodes before that in the playoffs, especially, power moves need to be made, and that, in my opinion, is a power move. That's a mental. He's playing mental chess with the other team at this point, and that goes so far in the playoffs. Like you said, 162 games, that wears on your body and your mind. You think those coaches aren't tired? So to do those little things that kind of throws people off, and then not only that, but then for them to be successful, and like you said, go back to back and all that good stuff. That's what I would love to see more of. That mental chess, mental ninja mentality.
Yeah. And TJ, I mean, we go back old school. So when you think about it, if you're sitting back looking for the three-run homer, it's a bit of a laid back kind of thing. And when they do it a home run, they jog around the bases, etc., like that. Where is that look, that tangible look of an aggressive team? A team that wants it, a team that's gonna, with fire in their eyes. It's just inherently not there because of the style of play. I'm not making this up. The Yankees analytics computer program is called BASE, BASE. It's an acronym: Baseball Analytics and Statistics Engine. So that's not really so creative, but that's really what it is. And what it is that for something that they act so sophisticated with, Rose, it's a very simplistic kind of end result that they're looking for. Hit the ball hard and throw the ball hard. They're looking for exit velocity. They're looking for spin rate. They think that the regular season is the reason why they're having very good regular seasons is because of the fact that it's a big sample size. The postseason is a crapshoot because it's just a condensed version, a small sample size. They're wrong. The postseason is different. Rose?
Yes, I totally agree with you. It is. But so they're having. My problem is that they're having everyone tried to hit the ball as hard as you can. And not everybody could do that. Not everybody, Volpe has warning track power. I mean, he hit some home runs, but not everybody's going to hit a home run. And all the home runs we hit are singles because we never have anybody on base. We never have traffic on base. And like Mike's, the fact that we didn't win enough games, we had to go into Toronto at a disadvantage, not our number one pitcher. Billy Bean says, I'm going to clean it up. My stuff doesn't work in the postseason. He said it in his book. So I don't understand why it's not important to win in the postseason. I guess because you're making enough money in the regular season that you don't care. But your fans care. Your fans want to win a World Series. Your fans want to go to the parade. If I could say something about Mickey Mantle, I was happy. I was lucky enough to get Mickey to sign the book, The Mick. And I remember one thing he said is like players today, they start working out all year. And he said that's what spring training was for, to get in shape.
Yeah.
But the thing that they got into was, don't you think, and you guys played baseball shape. It's baseball shape. It's not WWE shape, which the players today, they look like wrestlers. There's a difference, I think. I'm kind of asking that, right?
No, you're right. That's why, I mean, when I see Aaron Judge running a ball down in the outfield, I mean, it amazes me. I mean, the guy is huge. Yeah. I'm sure he works out a lot and all, but you can I think this year he looked the best I've ever seen him look, just body wise and all that, and the way he played. And you could tell if they had had another game, I think they would be, where they would be playing.
Well, let me take this opportunity in this moment, okay? Because they're going to have a press conference tomorrow, and Boone is going to talk, and then Cashman is going to talk. Now, we know that Volpe had the shoulder surgery already. So he had it a few days ago. So he had the surgery already. Now, what I'm going to say is that dovetails to exactly what Eric was saying, his frustration with the analytics department and them making decisions and quite poor decisions with that. Now, it makes for an interesting decision going forward. What are we going to hear tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen? The timing of this isn't that great. It would have been perfect if 12 noon today, we would have heard what Boone and Cashman had to say. And then what we could have done, we could have kind of responded to that. They kind of took a little bit of a long time to hold the press conference, which makes me a little bit suspicious right there. I'm going to throw something out. We're talking about Volpe, and we're talking about his injury. Okay, what I think is getting underreported a little bit is Judge and that elbow, because he went on the IL in July with the flexor strain. And when you have that strain in your forearm, a lot of times it's a precursor to Tommy John surgery. Well, I've been saying it on this show many, many times in different ways. Should we start questioning, will Aaron Judge continue to be able to play right field? The question is, why, after all of the time that's gone by, even in the postseason, in the most important games, he's not really able to unleash his A throw, okay, going first to third or whatever the case may be. So I'm wondering, is it possible that they're going to drop that bombshell on us? Well, he had another MRI, and this one was, with dye contrast, and it just so happens to turn out he's got a slight tear, in his UCL, like Tanaka did. But Tanaka played through. If we're saddled with that, then what? Then we're saying, well, they're not going to take him and put him on the shelf for a year. You know why? They're going to make him play through the injury because it's only a slight tear, if that's what they tell us, because they did it with a pitcher, Tanaka. They would definitely, do it with Judge because they can't afford to lose Judge. Without Judge, they're a sub 500 team. Now, let's think optimistic, and let's just say that it's not an issue with Judge, that Judge will play right field next year. Okay. But I'm just giving you some food for thought in terms of the press conference tomorrow. But let's say, for the sake of my scenario as what I would do in the offseason, okay, I'm going to save, the biggest problem for last, but I'm going to tell you some moves that I would make with position players. I believe very strongly that pitching and defense wins championships. Derek Jeter had a big ego, and he was, definitely, he kept it, under wraps. But anytime anybody asked him, what do you think of the team, or what do you think of your chances? He would always say the same thing: we will go as far as our pitching takes us. And that was Derek Jeter saying that. Okay. I believe pitching and defense wins championships. Now, so with that being said, defensive wise, I like Jason Dominguez. I always did. I said to my son, Anthony, get his card years ago. I think this guy is a legit left-handed hitter. Right-handed, okay, but definitely left-handed. But I am going to say I've seen enough of him defensively to say I don't trust him in the outfield. I might trust him, or tolerate him during the regular season. I don't have enough trust in him in a postseason game to put him in left field or center field. I'm not one who thinks that the problem is they took him from center and put him in left. I don't think he was a good defensive center fielder. I don't think he's a good enough defensive left fielder. For that reason, I'm going to trade him. And here's who I'm going to trade him for. Okay, he was on the market. There was some rumors about him at the trading deadline, but it didn't happen. Stephen Kwan, Cleveland Guardians. He's 1 year away from free agency. Cleveland is never going to pay him. They're not going to back up the Brinks truck for him. They're going to need to trade him. I'm going to trade Jason Dominguez and fill in the blank. We have some very interesting prospects in terms of pitchers down on the farm. We got plenty to make it Jason Dominguez and somebody else. I'm trading for Stephen Kwan. He's a legit leadoff hitter, not one of these leadoff hitters that that we saw this year. It just doesn't feel right. Goldschmidt batting leadoff, okay, but he's not a lead. You know what I mean? Stephen Kwan is a legit leadoff hitter. He's a 300 hitter. He's a Gold Glove winner in left field. And oh, by the way, he strikes out 8% of the time. Go look at what Volpe strikes out. Go look at this is what's sorely needed. A leadoff hitter, somebody who doesn't strike out, and somebody that I could pop into left field with a Gold Glove. We all agreed I want Bellinger, but I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm putting him in center because I got Stephen Kwan in left. For the sake of this conversation, I'm going to assume that it's Judge and right. So I got Judge and right, I got Bellinger, and I got Stephen Kwan. I traded J-Dom and Spencer Jones. I'm bringing up. You're my fourth outfielder. You are what J-Dom was this year. I'm hoping that you could field. You're 6'7". I'm hoping that I have a left-handed Aaron Judge on my hands. Prove it. Okay? That's what I'm doing with the outfield. As far as Anthony Volpe, before the injury, I felt the same way that I feel with the surgery now. Makes me even that much more certain what the strategy should be. I'm not trading Volpe. I don't think his value's there. I don't see the point of it. And I still have belief in Anthony Volpe. However, we have to break you down, Anthony Volpe, and we have to reinvent you. You will hit gap to gap. You will take a level swing. I was fortunate enough to interview his high school coach only days after he was drafted out of Del Barton. And his coach said, I asked him, ask him who he looks up to on the present game. Okay, he said Bregman. I'm going to tell Anthony Volpe, just watch tape of Bregman. He chokes the bat. He takes a short, compact swing. He hits to all fields. That's what we're going to do with you, Anthony. You lost your job as the starting shortstop. You're probably not even going to be able to start the season because of the shoulder surgery, but you'll be back soon enough. We're going to replace you at shortstop for now. Okay? Now, I'm going to put a question mark next to that. I loved Corey Seager. I would do it in a heartbeat, and it just so happens that it's TJ's cousin, so that would even be better. Okay, but we're going to put a question mark at shortstop. But I am going to say emphatically, my plan with Volpe is you are a super utility player. You're going to learn second base. You're going to learn third base because that's what's best for you. And that's what's best for me as the Yankees, because I'm not sure what I have in Jazz. Okay. TJ wants to trade Jazz right now. And I understand why. Okay. Because he's a big question mark. Okay. He's an enigma wrapped in a riddle. I don't like that. I want to know what I have in my players. Okay. So I get why he's saying that. Okay. And we like McMahon. He's got a great glove, but, we don't know what the future is necessarily with him long term. Volpe, I think you could be a Bregman. Learn third base. Maybe it's third for you. Learn second base. Maybe it's second base for you and not Jazz. Or maybe we reinvent you and ultimately you are the shortstop. But next year, that's going to be your role. You're going to play second, some short, some third, learn all three positions, but you're going to break down your swing. You're going to hit for average. You're going to not strike out so much, and you're going to play a clean defensive game. Gentlemen, and ladies, I'll start it, with, we'll go around and let's start with TJ. Your thoughts on, what I had to say.
I thought those were some pretty good thoughts. I mean, I was ready to just unload Volpe, but my big thing is with his surgery, do we know exactly when he'll be back? So yes, I think we could try to do some things. Now, my point would be, besides the fact that he level out his swing, but let's work on bunting skills, whether it's sacrifice or bunting for base hits, because he can run, he can scoot. So I think those things would be definitely a possibility with him.
TJ,
Um,
great point. And I want to say, you know what? I actually had that in my notes, and I'm glad you reminded me of that because I wanted to mention something, and I'll turn it back to you after that. I remember when the Yankee fan at Yankee Stadium really turned on him completely. And see if you guys remember this. He came up in a situation and he was asked to bunt, and it was when he was really scuffling. He was really just striking out every single time up, and he went to bunt, and it was horrible. He just didn't execute, and the Yankee Stadium booed him as hard as I ever heard because I think everybody was thinking what you just said. This is unacceptable. A young man like you with speed and you don't know how to bunt.
and I know that it's very difficult with this velo with these guys that are throwing 97, 98 all the time. Scooter Rizzuto and Billy Martin knew how to bunt. I just think those guys, he's in that kind of a mold, like an Andy Stankiewicz, guys that can fill a spot, fill a role, do those kind of things. Regarding Jazz, the guy is unbelievable with his talent and his ability. There's no doubt about that. He can steal, he can hit home runs, but I also think he gets lost, man. I mean, he goes to sleep on defense. His base running, he makes mistakes. I've seen enough with Jazz. That's my point with him, Mike. Um, uh, Dominguez, he's another one. I like the kid. I was pulling for that kid more than anything. I was really hoping he was going to make it. But, you're right. I don't think he can do it on defense enough. I think he's not Bull Lazinski. He can stick out there in left field, and he's going to overcompensate with his offense to, take care of things on defense.
You know what? We'll get some thoughts, from Eric and Rose, and I hinted as I was going through that. I said I'm saving my most powerful point, and it's got nothing to do with procurement. It's got less to do about dollars and more about cents. Okay, but Eric, thoughts on anything that you've heard, would you like to comment on?
Going back to your first point about the press conference, excuse me. I don't know what's going to happen at the press conference because it's like you said, it's a very awkward situation. I've never seen a manager get fired while at a press conference, right? I've never seen an injury be announced like this. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I'm hoping it's good news rather than bad news or neutral news where it kind of like leaves us in the same place. But I'm looking forward to it. I'd love to see what's going to happen tomorrow afternoon. I love your Quan take. That's a phenomenal take. I think that's a great move. It complements my point from earlier that the Yankees need to start playing a little bit more situational baseball. They need to start playing a little more what I call National League baseball, right? When I grew up, the National League was all about getting them on, getting them over, getting them in. And so it's like, come on, let's play a little bit of small ball. The Quan idea fits right into that puzzle. I think the Volpe Quan combo fits right into that puzzle. Volpe needs to learn how to adjust and play a little bit more small ball. A guy that immediately comes to mind when I think about those types of players, it's like Tony Womack, right? From back in the day. That was a very, very good slap hitter. Had a lot of speed. I considered him like a pesky annoyance, right? Like, oh God, this guy's always hitting, he's always getting on, he's always stealing bases. He's always playing this small ball on us. And I think that's what we need. I truly do think that's what we need. Imagine that kind of combination of that small ball with a couple of home runs peppered in between Judge and Giancarlo, right? I mean, talk about taking the lead, talk about energizing the crowd. And just to wrap up the whole Hal focusing on the bottom line idea, Hal, imagine if you get a World Series, man. Imagine what the stadium's going to look like the next season. Imagine how many hot dogs you're going to sell the next year, right? That was what was going on in 96, 98, 99, 2000. We were just on a snowball effect of success, and the stadium most certainly saw that. I mean, we built a new stadium probably with the money that we made back in the late 90s, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, why not, lean into that, man? Try to get a World Series. Forget about, home runs and getting the crowd hyped up just because Aaron Judge is in the lineup. Let's win some games. Let's get a championship. And I promise you, your crowd's going to be 10 times more excited to come out and catch a game. That's my thought.
Great point, Eric. And before I ask Rose for her comments, so just so that everyone knows, notable free agents: Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, Framba Valdez, okay, the lefty from Houston, Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso, closers, Edwin Diaz, right? So, I mean, there's some really interesting names out there. I would say that if we find out that Aaron Judge can't play the outfield anymore, if he can't play right field anymore, I would say, to Eric's point, be bold and say, we're going to get Bellinger for center field and Kyle Tucker, for right field if Judge has to play first. And then just like TJ saying, we're going to take Rice and put him behind the plate. Let's hope we don't hear that. But if Judge can't play the outfield, then get bold with right field. Rose, comments?
You know what? You talked me into it. Let's trade Dominguez. No, I thought they're very good points. What I think is going to happen at the press conference, I call it Yankee speak. They both, Hal, Cashman, and Boone, can talk and say nothing. And I'm just afraid that's what's going to be, I talk about like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 wah. I just don't know. I think that could very well be the press conference. I'm not even looking forward to it that much, to be honest. I think that, but Brian could go out and get a lot of free agents. That could happen. And the thing about the small ball, you know what? Every Yankee fan you talk to, at least for me, everybody's saying everything that we are saying on this broadcast. But yet the organization doesn't see it. So I hope that what you guys are saying will happen. I just don't have a lot of confidence in it that it will. But Volpe, I'm not sure he could play a lot of positions, but I definitely think you do have to break him down at least as a hitter, and say you are not a home run hitter. Let's bunt, let's hit the other way, situational hitting, and the base running is atrocious.
Well, you're right about that. And Billy, okay, so you're an agent, but you talk to a lot of scouts, and you've managed in independent leagues and stuff like that. When I look at Volpe, he's got very quick reflexes that could play third if he had to. Like he's very quick. Like I actually think when he plays shortstop, he doesn't look like a prototypical shortstop. The way he gets rid of the ball is almost like a second baseman. We worry about ourselves now. You've failed at shortstop. We're not saying no to you, but I want to see what you look like so I can keep, my opportunities open. And then, like, I just read off some free agents, but a lot of them are not, great fits because you say, man, who wouldn't want Kyle Schwarber with that left-handed, perfect, for the short porch. But where is he going to play? Defensively, left field? It ain't happening. Okay, we got a DH. We're clogged up there. God knows if we need the DH, for Judge sooner rather than later. So we don't have the luxury of going after a bat like this. These things start getting complicated because you want somebody, and it's trite and it's cliche, but you want somebody that checks off all the boxes. Bellinger checks off all the boxes for us. He could play any outfield position and first base. He could hit for power, and he doesn't strike out. He has a 2-strike approach. He knows how to run the bases, checks off all the boxes. Guy like Quan would check off all the boxes, and we desperately need a leadoff hitter. So those are the kind of things. Before I bore you guys with my biggest point, or what I think is lacking the most, get some thoughts from Billy.
All right. So while you guys have been talking, I made a couple calls, and so the Yankees are going to trade Volpe, Jazz, and Wells to the Rangers for Seager and either Heim or Hishigawa. They're working on that part right now. And the Quan trade's been done, so this is what next year's lineup is going to look like. It's going to be Quan, Bregman, Judge, Seager, Bellinger, Rice first, Stanton at DH, McMahon at third, and Heim or Hishigawa catching. Okay. I'm okay with that lineup. But,
You're the GM. You're hired.
yeah,
You're
but
hired.
there are so many factors. There are so many factors, like you guys are talking about, that we can't control and don't know about. Yeah, I'd love to see him go after a Pete Alonso. Um, and I honestly can't imagine they're not, because he kind of fits that analytics mold crazily. And I'm not sure I totally love it, but that's the glorified Joey Gallo. Really, if you look at his numbers, he's home runs, but not much else. I don't know. This stuff it's so hard to do. It's easy to sit in the back seat and do it like we're doing. But man, I'd love to see him just get a little more old school and get those guys out there that want it all. And I like when a player wants to play hurt. I do. I love that. But management's got to step up and say, no, your hurt is hurting us.
You know, Danny, Eric said it so succinctly, and he said, just win another championship, and you'll see what the town turns into. And you know, it's sobering when you think that they've won one championship in the last quarter century. This is 2025. They've won one since 2001. One in 25 years is not Yankee like. And the excuse that the postseason is a crapshoot doesn't hold water. And Danny, I know there's something that bothers you. And there's a distinction between a wild card round and a divisional series and a championship series. And then there's the World Series. And it bothers you, and I can understand why it does. Mickey Mantle has the record for most home runs in a World Series with 18. And you say, well, you know, now we have all these different rounds. Yeah, we get that. But look at the way the quality of the competition gets the further and deeper you get. You can bludgeon with the bats in the wild card. You can get through a team like the Boston Red Sox, who are flawed, okay, and we're not perfect. But then when you go deeper and when you get to the World Series, you are going to see pitching staffs that are elite and you know, lineups that are very difficult, Danny. So you make an excellent point, and I know you want to mention this, Danny. So if you will, the distinction of the difference between playoffs, postseason, and World Series.
Well, like we've said before, I mean, when I grew up, there were playoffs, and then you go to the World Series. Now it's just like too many things. You know, there's too much stuff happening, and and they mix up. Like I've heard, and of course it's my dad, so it hurts worse because they'll be, oh, he just passed Mickey Mantle in postseason. I'm thinking, well, Mickey Mantle really never played in a playoff, so I don't see how he just passed Mickey Mantle. So they need to kind of get that. For me, I mean, that's my dad. So personally, I don't care if it makes someone mad, but the thing is, it's just not right. And
I'd love to say something about that.
Yeah, please.
Well, think about it this way. If your father hit that many home runs in World Series play only, how many more would he have if they'd have had some playoffs, let alone the several layers of them they do now? I mean, I'm sorry. Your father would have another 200, maybe 300 at bats. I'm going to say we're going to tack another 40 on there. I don't know. So
At least,
it should be a distinction. World Series home runs are a little more important than postseason home runs.
And Dad, he has 6 records in World Series play, so I mean, it's just, and you never hear anything about him, and it's crazy to me that they just, it's me and Mike have talked plenty about it, and it's, I would rather hear playoff, what was really what it is, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't claim to be the master of baseball, but I'm just saying, they used to call it playoffs. I mean, what happened? So I don't know.
And the World Series is the World Series, and we all know it. And,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, what I wanted to do is, Eric, want to thank you for joining us, and we're gonna do this since they did the press conference tomorrow. How about we all circle back for next week, Eric? We're gonna let you go. Does that sound fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to seeing what's going to happen tomorrow and then talking with you guys about it. So thanks for having me again. I'll be looking forward to it.
Thank you, Eric.
Pleasure.
We'll see you next week. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, Eric.
Okay.
Good seeing you, bud.
Right.
Take care, man.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
And what we want to say is that let me just say this without boring all of you, but it's kind of deep, and it's something that I've been talking about all year, and I think it's the biggest factor, and it's got nothing to do necessarily with who's the free agent that we can sign and back up the Brinks truck. It's not a blockbuster trade. It's making the most of the players that you have, and specifically pitchers. Now, those that have been with me all year that we've done this show together, you hear me talk about pitching and sequencing and mixing of the pitches and mixing of velocity. It frustrates me when I see a Blake Snell go out and throw a one-hitter, and then you look and he threw 57% changeups to right-handed batters. He's a left-handed pitcher that when it was a righty up there, okay, he threw 57% changeups, and then he threw his curveball 32% of the time to lefties. This is what I've been preaching all year long with the curveball and the changeup as the real off speed. Think back to Skubal, okay? He pitched a gem, okay? His out pitch is his changeup. He struck out 13 batters and walked nobody in a losing effort, okay? When they showed the highlight package of his strikeouts on changeups, every single one was down and away to a right-handed batter. When the reason why I'm saying all of this, I love Max Fried. I still have 100% confidence in him. It's the coaching staff that I'm really questioning, because I've been questioning it since May. I said, why was he from 23% curveballs down to 14%? That's a big drop. Going into the playoff game, going into the most important game of the year against the Toronto Blue Jays, he's not really throwing his curveball. He's not really throwing his changeup. And when you do, you have to execute. He leaves a curveball middle. Well, we saw Luis Heel. He throws a changeup 90 miles an hour, middle. Okay. Carlos Rodon, he throws a changeup to Vlad. It ends up middle. Okay. To me, this is the crux of the problem. As the regular season goes along, they're able to dominate middle of the pack teams. I dwell on if this weakness, okay, is it going to play in the postseason? If I feel that it's not, and I remember Max Fried going into the Dodger game in late May, he was 7-0. He was undefeated. He got hit hard. He didn't throw his curveball that day. Why? I'm looking at all of these. I have to look at it through the prism of being successful in the postseason and working backwards. It's the same reason why I want to trade J-Dom now. I don't have the confidence in him. So what am I going to gain by putting him out there in left field? Yeah, I can get away with it, during the regular season. But if I don't have confidence in him in the postseason, the value isn't there. But that's what I see. And when I look at the fact that we failed with our starting pitching, with Max Fried and Carlos Rodon, if we would have went down with them pitching their game, and then sometimes you got to tip your cap to the hitters, that's one thing. That was not what I saw. That was not what I saw. And I think that's the biggest thing. And it's because the analytics department does not look at the postseason as a different animal. And they just look at it as an extension. He was successful during the regular season. He won 19 games. Rodon won 18 games. Everything is good. There's no reason to change. Well, they found that out. So that's the biggest thing to me, to learn that and to own that concept and take that into the offseason, take that into next year, because it won't matter who plays left or who plays shortstop if they don't learn and own that. TJ, we'll give you, last thoughts before we sign off. Your comments?
First of all, Danny and Billy, I love hearing these old stories, man. I mean, I don't go back to when your dads played. So hearing the stories you're telling is just phenomenal. I just love it. I hope we can continue to do this. Mike, it's always a pleasure, man. I appreciate it. It's just an honor to be on the show. I know Eric's gone. He adds so much. I mean, he's the youngest guy in the bunch, and he looks at things a little bit differently than we do, but I think we're all in the same boat. We want to see the Yankees win. Miss Rose, you're the only female in the bunch, and I enjoy your input with the chicken buckets and all the finances that goes on with the ball club. I just want to thank everybody. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll get some things done here in the next few weeks. We'll see what they got to say in the press conference tomorrow.
Great comments, TJ. We'll have you back on the next episode, and we thank you. And I just wanted to, you mentioned Rose, and I would just like to say that we all know that Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in the National League. Larry Doby broke the color barrier only a month later or a few weeks later in the American League. Larry Doby is an afterthought, but he was a great player, and he went through just as much as Jackie Robinson did. Rose's dad was good friends with Larry Doby. They played minor league baseball together. Okay. Rose's dad played professional ball on the minor league level, never made it to the show. But listen to this. And Billy and Danny and TJ, you'll appreciate this. Larry Doby loved Rose's dad so much that when he passed away, Larry Doby came to the funeral, paid his respects, because that's how much he thought of Rose's dad as a player and a man. Rose?
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. They were both from Paterson, New Jersey, and they were proud of it. And my dad was always proud to be Larry's friend. And Larry, I only met him a few times in my life, but what a gentleman, what a wonderful person. He was really a gentleman. And when he came to my dad's funeral, I mean, they hadn't seen each other in years, and that was something special. And it makes me proud too, to know that my dad and Larry are friends, and that they played ball together.
That's a great story.
I would just like to say, Mike, I think that, the pitching is, I'm just going to say it real quick. Baseball is a game of adjustments, and the analytical department of the Yankees refuses to make adjustments. That's all. That's my final thought. But I wanted to also say, Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle, that's when I came into the game. My first memories of the game of those guys, and on Billy Martin, more as a coach. Like you said, back in the 70s, a bunch of kids would get in a car and go sit in the bleachers for 50 cents, I think, at the time, and watch those 70s Yankees. And Billy was a favorite. He just understood baseball more than almost anybody I've ever seen. And it's a pleasure to be on here with you guys and to make me a part of these broadcasts. I'm very happy. Thank you, and I hope to do it in the future.
Thank you, Rose. We'll definitely have you back, and we thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to give the last word to Danny and to Billy. We'll go in reverse order. We'll let Danny go first, and then Billy will have the final comments. Danny?
I just wanted to say that, I mean, I've enjoyed everybody. You know, Eric is gone too, but I was just saying that just listening to you guys is great for me because I don't get chances to do this either, and it's very fun, and it's been a pleasure, you know, getting to. I'm going to say know you guys because I feel like I do, but I think this is a great thing that we're doing here, and I really enjoy hearing all these stories. It's just great to me. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Danny. Billy, we're going to give you the last word, and that's it for tonight.
Well, I was going to go off on a goofy tangent, talk about the facts that the reason Max Fried probably lost that game against the Dodgers was he probably grew up a Dodger fan. And this leads to what goes on in your head being the most important thing with all these players, because every kid that's drafted has the ability to play in the major leagues. Why does only half of first rounders even make it to the big leagues? Why does less than 9% of drafted players have a 4-year career? And it's all right in here. And the analytics guys don't believe that somebody can play in New York and somebody can't. I promise you, it's a fact. Some people can't handle the stress of putting on the pinstripes, and we've seen it. We've seen a multi-year all-star like a Devin Williams step in and be terrible as a Yankee, and it looked like he got past it as the season ended. And I'm almost in favor of them re-signing him, but I'm going to bet that's probably why he 7-0 faced the Dodgers and lost. That tells you something right there. Maybe that tells me a little bit more why he struggled in the postseason. You know, maybe he does get a little mental out there because his stuff's great. So hopefully they figure that out, and maybe that cancels out my idea that they should sign his 2 high school teammates that are both free agents this year, and Lucas Giolito and Jack Flaherty, because they both, well, Jack was in the postseason. Lucas would have been had he not gotten hurt. But anyways, back to this stuff. It's hard to be a Yankee. Not everybody can put on the pinstripes. The analytics guys need to figure that out too when they're doing their computer work, because it takes a different person to be able to handle the good and the bad that comes with it. To be able to look at the DiMaggios and the Babe Ruths on the wall and wonder where you're going to fit in, and deal with Yankee fans screaming and yelling at you. It's a different world. I think about it all the time as an agent when I've got guys that are headed that direction, and I hope and pray that they can handle it. But how do you figure that out? If we knew that, if we could figure that out, this would be very easy. So I hope they do, and we'll see what happens, because go Yankees.
My
Yeah,
one of my favorite things was what your dad said, Billy. You know, may not have been the greatest Yankee, but I was the proudest. That was it. Always sticks in your heart there.
It does. Yep.
You know what, Billy? I said I was going to give you the last word, but I have to say one more word. You're right about everything, and in fact, with Max Fried, he's a California kid. He was born in Santa Monica. His father was a Dodger fan, and his father loved, and again, it was before his time, his father's time. It was before his father's time. But he idolized Sandy Koufax, and he showed him black and white footage of Sandy Koufax, and said, son, I want you to learn how to throw the curveball like him. So you're spot on, as always. But here's what we're going to do. Here's what how we're going to leave off. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed it. I know you did. If you're a Yankee fan and you didn't enjoy this, I don't know what to tell you, because it conversation and didn't get any better than that. But tomorrow we have a press conference at 12 noon with Boone and Cashman. So that gives us all reason to circle back next week and do another show and comment on what we hear on the press conference. So looking forward to seeing everybody and talking to everybody next week. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Sounds good.
Good night, everybody.
There you go. Thank
Take
you
care,
again.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you, everybody.